everybody's talking about the Florida-Miami game. And then your neck of the woods, everybody's talking about Notre Dame coming to town. But the week 3, that's a pretty big game between Florida and Texas A&M here in the Swamp.
Yeah, Pat, it's funny you mentioned that because when I started glancing back over the schedule, I go, whoa, that's going to be on us before we know it. In week 3.
Another duly noted podcast comes to you from the Coach's Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill in Celebration Point. Okay, welcome to another duly noted podcast brought to you by our good friends at Titan MRI, and of course, come to you from the Meldon Law Gator Studios. Today on the show, Brent Zwerneman, who covers A&M for the Houston Chronicle, is going to join us. Known Brent for a long time. He's a great guy to talk to. He really knows him. I thought I'd have him on because, we can talk about the Miami game all we want, but this is a long season. Game 3, the Florida Texas A&M game, is certainly going to be a big game for the Gators. And I also wanted to just kind of get a feel for where they are, post Jimbo era. So that'll be fun to talk to him. Coach Spurrier will join us again on Monday. And then I'm really looking forward to next Thursday. Wayne Peace is going to join us. We'll talk about his memories of Miami. That'll be a lot of fun. I enjoy Wayne's always talking to Wayne. Talked to him for a long time the other night as well. We're just catching up, but I'm looking forward to that. All right, so that'll be and then of course, Drew Copeland's going to join us the following Thursday we'll pick our playoff teams. Let's get to our Gainesville Quarterback Club starting 5, brought to you by the Gainesville Quarterback Club. You can get a membership there, or you can join remotely with a membership, and that is a kind of a cool thing because you can still see all the speakers if you join the club by getting on the Zoom. And I mentioned this earlier. Ernest Graham is the speaker on August 27th. That is the first meeting for the season. And they got some unbelievable speakers, including Jimbo Fisher's coming. Nat Moore, I think it's the 3rd week. And Dan Mullen's coming to speak. Patrick Young is going to speak. I can't wait for that. Can't wait to introduce him, my good friend. Saw him at the Spurrier thing Monday night. And just great to see him. He's such a good dude, man. It's really sad what's happened to him, but not to him. He's trying to keep a stiff upper lip about the whole thing. Anyway, so the Gainesville Quarterback Club, as I mentioned earlier, Ernest Graham is the first speaker on August 27th. And I encourage everybody to join it. It's a great club. And there are other great clubs in this town. Look, the Gainesville Quarterback Club is where I speak every Tuesday night, but I'm also speaking to the Fighting Gator Touchdown Club next week, and Monday or Tuesday. Was it Tuesday? Yeah, Tuesday. I spoke to the Titletown Gator Club, so we had a good time with those guys too. Great time. But anyway, Gainesville Quarterback Club, good club to be a member of. Great speakers, and they'll have a great time. Meet every Tuesday, except when they have their golf tournament. Let's get to our starting 5. And the number one story for me right now in Gainesville, Florida, is that Florida's all the stuff that we've heard about seems to be coming to fruition out there on the practice field. Now, I can only talk to people who are able to watch practice because all we can watch is guys running around for a little bit and then you take your video and leave. But they did have a scrimmage the other day, and they did invite the media out to that. I was not able to attend, but I did talk to a lot of people that were there. And the bottom line is the secondary really is looking good, and that is great to hear. because that has been the biggest problem for Florida. And now I will say this, that you can only be as good in the secondary as you are up front, because if you can't put pressure on the quarterback, he's got more time to throw. He can pick you apart. You're going to get open eventually. But reactions to the ball, things like that weren't there the last 3 years. Like we've talked about this before, Florida's been bad on defense, and especially in the secondary for the last 4 years, really. You go back to 2020 when nobody played defense, but then Florida decided not to play defense anymore. And they haven't. 3 interceptions last year, which we talked about many times. Asa Turner's making a difference there. Of course, this is a guy who played in the national championship game last year for Washington. He's making a difference. I think, Devin Moore, I don't think we got to see how good he can be. And everybody is talking about how good he's looking right now in camp. And Jason Marshall might be the third best guy in the secondary. You're talking about a 5-star recruit or a 4-star, whatever he was a big-time recruit. But hopefully he has a big year. So we'll see what happens. Again, it's hard to know exactly what's going on with this team until they start playing games. I mean, the guys can talk about it, but it's just hard to know until you see them play. But everything seems to be – now, I know they've had a couple of injuries. Montrell Johnson certainly is not something that makes me happy. But the bottom line is they are looking good so far. Now, I'm sure that they're saying that in Miami and in College Station and in Baton Rouge, and man, we're looking better than we were last year. I know that. I know everybody's saying that, but that is the big story today. At least I'm making it the big story. Let's get to number 2. And now that was a positive story, right? So this is kind of a negative story, but I'm not taking it as a negative story because ESPN came out with its top 100 players in college football right now. How many Florida Gators do you think were on the list? The top 100 players. Well, there were a couple. They're just not here anymore. There were 3 players on the list that have transferred. Princely is one, Etienne's another, and the linebacker Roland, I can't think of it, Antoine Roland, whatever. Anyway, that guy who's playing at Virginia Tech now. They were on the list, but no current Florida Gators are on the list of top 100 players. I don't believe that for a second, that Florida doesn't have a top 100 player, but this is the perception of the University of Florida football program right now, is that there's no studs. No studs. They got guys on this list who, I don't know that they're going to be that good. The number 1 player on the list, I'm trying to remember who it was golly. I'm blanking out on who it was. But anyway, I know who it was, James Pierce, the linebacker at Tennessee. And so I looked it up. I went through the entire list. There are 30 players on this list of top 100 players who will play against Florida this year. Now, you assume they're going to play against Florida, but they could be hurt. And obviously 2 former Gators who are going to play against Florida. But it's just, that is the perception of Florida football right now. It's no good. It's got no studs. Other teams have studs. Florida does not. I'm not saying they're right. I'm just telling you that's the perception right now of where they are. And we've seen it all through the summer. Gators stink. 12th in the SEC. That was the media pick. Coaches didn't rank them. Writers didn't rank them. I'm loving it. I love all this disrespect. Hey, I tell you, I can't go get no respect. I love it though. I don't want Florida to get respect. I want them to have to earn it. You earn the respect. You go win some games. Go beat some people. Beat some of these ranked teams you're going to play. That's how you get respect. Okay. So anyway, yeah. And then they also had a list of the 32 under the radar players that could have breakthrough seasons, and no Gators were on that either. I'm just like, wait a minute. They don't even have guys that are under the radar. So look, we know better than this. We know that the Florida's got better players than I think a lot of people realize that they have. But I mean, look, there are definitely some guys on that team that are going to be big time players. All right, let's move along with our starting five, brought to you by the Gainesville Quarterback Club, to our number 3 item, which is that a lot of injuries going around, man. A lot of injuries. Texas lost another running back. Missouri lost a starting defensive end for the season. Oklahoma lost a wide receiver for the season. So we're seeing all this happen. It feels like every day stories are coming out. And like I always say, there's no good news stories in camp. It's only bad news comes out. But it's also in the NFL. The NFL injury list is ridiculous. It's almost like these guys didn't work out before. Everybody's got a pulled hamstring. Oh gosh, I didn't know I was got to run when I got to the including, well, one of the players that's out now and out for the year is J.J. McCarthy, who was making great strides with the Vikings, and now they're stuck with Sam Darnold and a couple other journeymen, I guess you would say. And that's been happening. But look, you go look at the injury list, and anytime anybody tweaks anything, they're holding them out because you got to make sure he's ready to play. This is why guys don't play in preseason games. Now, they will play in these preseason games this week, and then they won't play the next week, but we'll still charge money for tickets. Anyway, it's a violent game, man. People get hurt, and you're seeing it happen all over the place. So, I mean, we've seen it with Florida, with a couple of guys getting hurt, but it's just the way it is. Let's get to number 4 on our Gainesville Quarterback Club starting 5, and that is the new. I just saw this today. Actually, a friend of mine sent it to me. I'm not going to reveal his name. I'll tell you why some other time. But anyway, he sent it to me. The new trailer is out for the FX story on Aaron Hernandez. Now, this is based on a true story type thing. So don't take if you watch it, don't take any of it as the gospel. Believe me, when they say inspired by a true story, they can make anything up. And that Lakers dynasty thing was ridiculous. I know Jerry West is not like that, certainly. But I think the story might be interesting. But I was watching the trailer, and there's a lot of Gator footage in there, Gator stuff, and it's obviously his meetings with Urban are in there, and I don't know who plays Urban Meyer. I know who should play him. This friend of mine who works up in Alachua should play him. He looks just like him. Anyway, that's the story, and it's going to come out, and I know it's not going to be pleasant for Florida fans, and certainly not for Florida administrators. They're not going to like it, but it's happening. Can't stop it. All right, let's get to number 5 on our Gainesville Quarterback Club starting 5. And again, let's end it with a positive story too. And that was last night in baseball. What happened last night in baseball? Well, the Braves won, but that's not the point. Wyatt Langford, yard, 3-run homer in the ninth to tie the game with 2 outs. Nice. Number 2, Jonathan India, 2 home runs in his game. Number 3, Pete Alonso goes yard for the Mets. Hate the Mets, love Pete Alonso. So that was pretty cool to have 3 Gators go yard in the big leagues on the same night, and all 3 fairly significant homers. So congratulations to them. But again, this is the run that Sully's on. I mean, he just keeps turning out big league baseball players. They're all over the place. I know Florida's, I think, 6th in the number of players. I think that number is just going to keep growing because it's not like a lot of these guys are getting ready to retire. I wouldn't think so. Anyway, so that's number 5 on our Gainesville Quarterback Club starting 5. I forgot to mention I got a haircut. I hope you guys are noticing how nice and trim it is. I have this woman who cuts my hair, does a great job. She's from Thailand. We were talking about golf in Thailand. She played a lot of golf in Thailand. It was pretty interesting. Anyway, you're not interested in it though, or in my hair. So let's go on and take a break, and we'll bring Brent Zwerneman on here from the Houston Chronicle. We'll talk about Texas A&M. What are they going to do this year? Look forward to talking to him. We'll play Yes, No, Where, maybe with him as well. You are listening or watching another duly noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Gator Studios.
Titan MRI, North Central Florida's premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. At Titan MRI, we're focused on you, the patient, having a great customer experience. Our MRI equipment is modern and 75% quieter than any unit in its class. And our MRI unit has one of the largest openings of any of the newer high-strength MRI units, which allows comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobic and larger patients. At Titan MRI, we look forward to serving you.
Great food, great atmosphere, a diverse menu, everything made from scratch, plenty of space, and locally owned. These are all the characteristics of a great restaurant, and you can find each and every one of them right here in Gainesville at Ballyhoo Grill. Ballyhoo Grill prepares all of their food fresh every day, from their salad dressing to their award-winning soups. Bring your family and enjoy dinner under the Tim Trebo Tiki Hut while listening to live music. Or if you're running low on time to eat out, they also deliver through Uber Eats, Spite Squad, and Postmates. A Gainesville staple that's been open for over 30 years. Check out Ballyhoo Grill on Facebook or at ballyhoogrill.com.
Hey Gator fans, football season is here. Take your Gator experience to the next level by joining the Gainesville Quarterback Club. As the oldest Gator booster club in the world, we offer you exclusive access to elite speakers like coaches, college football insiders, and Gator legends. Connect with fellow Gator fans at our weekly in-season meetings, home game tailgates, and special events throughout the year. Don't miss out. Join the Gainesville Quarterback Club today. Individual and corporate memberships are available. Email me, Trisha Garzone, at membership@quarterbackclub.org. That's membership@quarterbackclub.org to get started.
Okay, welcome back to another duly noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Gator Studios. It's great to bring in our guest on the Big Mills Cheesesteaks Zoom line, Brent Zwerneman, who covers Texas A&M, of course, for the Houston Chronicle, has been around for a long time in the SEC, knows the SEC very well, and certainly knows A&M very well. And I wanted to have you on, Brett, because everybody's talking about the Florida-Miami game. And in your neck of the woods, everybody's talking about Notre Dame coming to town. But the week 3, that's a pretty big game between Florida and Texas A&M here in the Swamp.
Yeah, Pat, it's funny you mentioned that, because when I started glancing back over the schedule, I go, whoa, that's going to be on us before we know it. You know, in week 3, kind of unusual. A&M has typically opened SEC play with, not always, but typically with Arkansas late September in that neutral site game in Arlington. So I know all the talk around College Station is about Notre Dame, and sure, that's a big opener and, you know, a lot of fun on that Saturday night. But a couple of weeks later, you're looking at a road trip, you know, against Florida. So yeah, there are so many questions around this offense for Texas A&M right now. And what I was going to say is we'll have a lot more of those answered by that Saturday night against Notre Dame, to then see what's going to be rolling into Gainesville for the week 3 as well. But it is interesting. It's A&M overall has a pretty advantageous schedule. It does seem like their highest ranked opponents are at home when you talk about Texas and LSU and, you know, the aforementioned Notre Dame. But certainly that's going to be a test early on for Mike Elko's Aggies as they're still trying to kind of find their feet with a whole new coaching staff and a whole new approach on offense.
Yeah, I mean, to me, they're another one of those teams, and I think there is about 8 of them in the SEC, the new SEC, that are X factors. I have no idea what they're going to be like. Florida is one of those teams. I can see 4-8. I can see 8-4. LSU is one of those teams, but Texas A&M is definitely one of those teams because new coach, as you said, lost a lot in the portal, gained a bunch in the portal. But what do you think about this team going forward for this year, just for this year?
I've got them at a solid 8-4. Now, I did say 8-4. When I say solid, I'm kind of kidding about that a little bit because, you know, Aggies obviously want more, but I don't know that you can expect more with all of the changes. Mike Elko did inherit plenty of talent, but, I mean, it's a whole new approach. The good thing for Aggies is he's familiar, having been defensive coordinator here But the Aggies had a big loss. The guy I was expecting them to kind of key their offense around and Colin Klein, the new offense coordinator's attack, Reuben Owens, went down last week with a lower leg injury. Mike Elko hasn't addressed that with us yet, but the idea is that it's probably season ending, if not late season on his return. So to me, that was huge for their fortunes, especially on offense, because frankly, they're talented, but a lot of that talent is on defense, and particularly the defensive line. So I would say 8-4 before I said that maybe with a ceiling of 10-2 if things go well. Well, I don't know anymore. Reuben Owens, he was a 5-star guy out of El Campo,
Right.
Texas, who was sophomore, who showed flashes as a freshman. I really thought Klein was going to use him in a variety of ways, and now he's no longer an option. You have Connor Wegman at quarterback, another 5-star guy, but he's returning from what was a troublesome foot injury. Mike Elko says he's 100%. We'll see about that. I think Marcel Reed, who played quarterback in the Texas Bowl last year, is a dynamic guy who move the ball. And if things aren't going well with Wegman, I think you might see Marcel Reed sooner rather than later. Although Mike Elko is definitely saying, hey, Wegman's his guy going into the season and against Notre Dame. So, yeah, to answer your question, I'm thinking 8-4, but maybe with Owens out, that could drop to 7-5 and so forth, right around in there.
Yeah, I was looking at Texas A&M's schedule today when I knew I was having you on, and you only have 4 ranked teams they have to play. I mean, again, it's preseason rankings. I understand that, but Florida's got 5. The last 5 they play are all ranked in the top 13. Yeah, there are no easy schedules in the SEC, but I think A&M and Missouri probably have the easiest schedules.
A&M, Mike Elko walked into a very advantageous. It's actually why late last season I thought Jimbo Fisher, I truly did. I thought he was going to survive with the idea that he did have this young, talented roster and the 2024 schedule really set up for him to make a run. Well, some regents had some other thoughts on that, but Mike Elko did walk into a good situation in terms of his schedule. Now, I do warn Aggies, don't look at 2025. Don't look ahead, because those home games you have against those ranked opponents are all on the road next year. Yeah, as they flip the schedule. So enjoy 2024, but that's also why I thought Jimbo Fisher was going to survive, with the idea that everything in place. He didn't. Now there's a new regime in place. There's obviously those first year adjustments you have to make. But yes, the schedule sets up very well for the Aggies to should be in that mix, at least with a good winning winning record in Elko's first season, and then go from there. He's got to recruit better on offense. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Defensive recruiting for A&M has been very much a plus the past few years, but they got to get some more playmakers in there. And obviously they did with Reuben Owens. Jimbo Fisher did, and now he's out. They're going to lean on Le'Veon Moss at running back now, another guy who was a one-time Alabama commit back when. But I really thought Owens was going to be the guy. Now it looks like it's going to be Le'Veon Moss for starters. Amari Daniels is another option back there, a guy who's got some playing time under Jimbo. But they are kind of hurting right now on offense for true playmakers.
Yeah, and of course, being on the road's never easy. We know what the swamp can be like. Now, the last time they were here was the second. I was thinking about this. It was the second night of I Won't Back Down. The first night was LSU. The second night was Texas A&M. Florida lost that game, I think, by 1 or 2 points.
Yeah, it was a close game. What year was that, Pat?
That would have been McElwain's last year. Said it would have been 17. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that ended up being Kevin Sumlin's. They all start kind of running together, as you know, but his last year as well. But I think Kellen Mond had come in and quarterback for the Aggies. Yeah. I will say this about that won't back down moment. That was one I was like, man, this is incredible. This is cool. It's one where you take out you're up in there in the press box and you do this, and I still have that video because it was just so cool. One of those kind of moments where you say, this is really a neat thing.
Yeah, it's gotten to be even a bigger deal as time has gone by. First time I heard it, I did get a little emotional because it was right after Tom Petty had passed away, and he's very special to me. But it was. Yeah,
he said, "Hey, Tom Petty is." Let me tell you, I mean, my theme song when I was in college as an old scrub left-hander at Sam Houston State was "Won't Back Down." I used to play it to myself all the time, and and he's beloved around here too. You know, that knows no geographic bounds. I'll put it that way. I know he's a bigger deal there, but he was an awful big deal here in Texas as well. And you know, he's certainly missed still.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I said this on the radio that not everybody likes Tom Petty, but everybody's got a favorite Tom Petty song. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When I was in high school, I used to sing Breakdown all the time. I'd be on a bus, on road trips, like for athletic events, and I would just sing Breakdown, and my teammates would sing along with me. So just
well, maybe we need to get your voice out for one of these media days. Get that going. Let me ask you, because I don't think fans here or in our listening area really understand how much Texas A&M hates Texas and vice versa, right? And I tried to compare it to kind of that Florida Miami. Nobody hates Florida more than Miami, believe me. So that's why this opener is going to be a big deal. But can you explain the A&M hatred of Texas and why it's so severe?
When this story broke a few years ago, my elderly father, who has since passed, he said at that time, he grew up in Dime Box, Texas, which is literally right between, if you look at a map, is right between Austin and College Station, out in the prairie. And so he said he always knew where the game was being played on a Thanksgiving growing up in the 1930s and 40s in Dime Box, by which way the cars were driving on the road out front, on Highway 21, Old San Antonio Road. And that was his memory of the game, seeing the cars fly by. Okay, it must be in College Station this year. It must be in Austin. Mm-hmm. So when he found out, that he said, man, I'm going to get to see this game again. And he wasn't even that huge of a sports fan, but he was a huge sports fan when it came to A&M playing the University of Texas. And growing up in this state, it was my favorite 3 hours of the year. And when A&M left for the SEC, I totally understood that. I got it. I understood why A&M did that. But I was like, can they keep playing the game? Well, at first, Texas said, no, you're leaving us. And then A&M said, anytime, anywhere. And then finally, A&M said, hey, let's play again. Texas was kind of down under Charlie Strong and so forth. And Texas was like, let's see, how did that go? Yeah. And then A&M's like, no, we're good. We're good with the SEC schedule. So when it came back, it's really hard to put into words. It is kind of funny. It is humorous because Texas fans will treat it as, no, Oklahoma's our rival. But the reason they say that is just to make Aggies more upset. Because Aggies freely admit, no, it's all about the Longhorns. They're separated by 100 miles, but philosophically, there's a big difference in the approaches of the two flagship universities of the state of Texas. So it is funny to see Longhorns say, no, Sooners, but they know in their hearts that it's mainly about Texas A&M. And so it is awesome to see it back. The bone that was thrown to Texas A&M when all this came about was, okay, we know the last game was in College Station in 2011. Obviously, the next game will be in Austin. Well, the SEC said, no, we'll let you have another game in College Station. So that was kind of the one thing they said when they said, okay, we're bringing Texas into the conference, and the bone for you is you get to have the first game back. And for the past, 13 years, Texas has had the bragging rights because they won on a last-second Justin Tucker field goal. And that game is still talked about, to your point, with Miami. 13 years ago, people still talk about that, and maybe a no call on defense and so forth that could have been an interference and all these things on down the line. So yeah, it was the single, when Texas and Oklahoma were being announced, people were like, oh, this is big for the SEC. My first thought was, the game is back. That was my dad's first thought. The game is back. So yeah, it's huge. And all of these Aggies who have said, oh, we don't need to me, they'll be the first in line for tickets as well, or were the first in line as well. So yeah, it's awesome to have that series back as not just a rivalry, but a league rivalry.
All right, we're going to play Yes, No, Where, Maybe with Brent here in just a minute. But first, I want to ask you really quickly, to sum it up, why it didn't work with Jimbo. Because, I mean, he goes out there, he's given a blank check for NIL. I mean, it's pretty amazing. And then it just was a disaster.
It really seemed like, Pat, that extension he got when LSU came after him after the 2020 season, Texas A&M, for all its resources, 100,000 fans, the passion, the number 4 finish they had in the AP rankings in 2020 was their highest since winning the national title pre-World War II, 1939. Then those guys all went and fought in World War II, which is an incredible story. But that's their highest finish, number 4 under Jimbo. LSU comes after him. He signs the extension, where they just, again, they give him a blank check on top of a blank check. And it really seemed like, I don't know, it seemed like things changed at that point. And my first indicator, where I even wrote this, and they started, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. But late in the 2021 season, when Mike Elko was actually leaving for Duke, Jimbo backed out of playing in the Gator Bowl, citing COVID or something like that. And essentially he was scared of losing to Wake Forest. I go, if you've got a coach who's scared of losing in a bowl game when they're turning down whatever it was, $5 million payout, said, we got some issues here, and that was going into that 2022 class. And it just seemed like in some ways, in a lot of ways, Pat, he just kind of started mailing it in. It became all talk. Like he just backed out of talking to the Texas High School Coaches Association, which is a huge deal here. He just didn't show up. And so they're left scrambling. He sends an assistant coach. There were other obligations, the Houston Touchdown Club, things like that coaches had done for not just years, decades. He just didn't do it, And so you started seeing him just kind of checking out for whatever reason. And then it comes down, they have the close calls. You go back to the narrow loss at Ole Miss, and apparently that's when the regent said, okay, that's never going to happen under this guy. But my kind of to conclude it all with Jimbo is anytime you heard him talk, you'd be like, wow, that's something, man. He's got it. But the talk didn't match the action by any means. He had players smoking dope in the locker room after the loss at South Carolina a couple of years ago, and he just acted like it was no big deal. Like that's almost like a normal thing or something. So just you could kind of go on down the list. And that's where Mike Elko, they really missed that discipline he had with this program as defensive coordinator 2018 to 2021. When he left, they were 31-14 with him, 12-13 without him. And you could see his influence was missed big time on the discipline front, not just on the defensive side of the ball, but really kind of throughout the whole program. So that was one of the reasons why they brought Elko back.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he's going to do a good job there. I think it may be a little rough this year, but I think he's going to do a good job there overall.
2026, because as I mentioned, man, don't look at the 25 schedule.
Exactly. All right, let's play Yes, No Way, or Maybe with Brent Zwerneman from the Houston Chronicle. It's brought to you by Big Mills Cheesesteak. Street dining done the right way. Go in there and say you listen to the podcast and you get free fries with your order at Big Mills Cheesesteak. All right, number 1. Yes, no way, or maybe A&M will finish the season in the top 25, which every time they've been ranked in the top 10 the last couple of years, they didn't finish ranked.
Yeah, I would say that's where the Elko factor plays in. So I'm going to go ahead and say yes, with the idea that they're kind of fringe right there in that 20 to 25 range.
Right. Yeah.
Would you think an 8-4 record would get you there, right? Or say 9-4? 9-4 with a bowl win or something like that. I would say that would be in that ballpark.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you on that. And that's why that Florida game for them is going to be a big game. I mean, Florida's
huge,
an unranked team and susceptible.
By the way, I remember Lagway's dad playing, and I grew up in Oak Ridge, which is south of Conroe. He's from Willis High School, north of Conroe. Right. Man, Florida has got a good one there, in terms of, he's going to be fun to watch. And from everything I know about the family and his upbringing and that whole setting, it's awesome. I know some family members who know them, and Florida has a lot to look forward to on that front.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of great things about that family, and I think that's you talked about with Jimbo, it became all talk, no action, and that's kind of what Gator fans are waiting for with Napier is okay. Everything he says and everything he's doing makes sense, and it's got Florida to a new level, but it's got to convert to the field. It's
got to be those, W's.
Yeah, that's all that matters. All right, let's get to number 2 on Yes, Nowhere, Maybe with Brent. Texas and Georgia are going to play for the SEC championship. I've asked this question of several people. This is my pick. It's Texas and Georgia. So yes, nowhere, maybe it'll be Texas, Georgia. I don't know if you're allowed to say that Texas.
I'm going to straddle that fence. I'm going to climb right on top of that fence and say maybe on that one, because I know Texas lost some big time playmakers. Obviously, they had a big loss with Baxter. It's kind of in this area. There's been an injury bug with really top running backs in this 100-mile area right now. So I think that impacts their outcome. So I'm gonna give you a firm maybe on that one, Pat. I think from the Georgia side, I think you're good on that one. From
Well, the only thing
everything,
about Georgia,
they're fired up.
the only reason I doubt them is because of their schedule, because they've got to play at Ole Miss, at Texas, at Missouri, I think it is. And
Yeah.
then also you open up with Clemson. Now, I don't think Clemson's going to be any good, but that's the only reason I would hedge on that at all.
Yeah, this expanded college football playoff. I mean, the SEC benefits from that more than anyone, right? I mean, in terms of with the 12 teams and I know obviously OU and Texas, all that played it, ties in together, but certainly because it is one of those senses where even if Georgia has a couple of narrow losses in that situation, they might be right there in the end and make it based on that expanded playoff. So I know I'm not exactly breaking news here by saying the SEC is going to benefit from the expanded playoff more than anyone else by far. It seems like, really.
Yeah, no doubt about that, and the Big Ten probably will too. But
yeah,
I don't even know who's in the Big Ten anymore. So I have to figure that out. All right, let's get to number 3 on Yes, Nowhere, Maybe with Brent. You have occasionally had to explain why the Aggies are called the Aggies to people.
Yes, and I had to figure it out early on too. Farmers would have been a good mascot or nickname as well, a little more self-explanatory there. But yeah, short for agriculture. Every once in a while, I'll make a reference to agriculture on mechanical school, Texas A&M, just because I always know I'm going to hear from Aggies at that point saying, "No, we got rid of that designation, whatever it was, 40 years ago. We were officially A&M." I said, "I know, but it's still fun to reference the old school." That's why when I did this book called Game of My Life on Aggie football legends, when I look back at stories from 1939, Jar and John, I love the nicknames back then, by the way. Jar and John Kimbrough led the way. So anyway, yeah, and I one of the things in the old stories, they would call them, and the cadets beat Tulane or whatever, or the Cadet 11. I'm like, that's pretty cool. So every once in a while I'll reference the cadets and people are like, what are you talking about? I'm just making a reference from 1939. That's all.
It is. It's a different experience going to a game there. I will say that it is. I know Coach Spurrier went to one last year and he fell in love with it. He thought it was the coolest thing.
I think what makes it unique is they have the yell leaders. Of course, they don't have cheerleaders on the field. They have the yell leaders, and the way I've heard it described, and I've never experienced this myself, but it's something like an English soccer game because so many things are uniform with the chants and the yells and the direction that the yell leaders give them. It certainly creates kind of a different environment. I will say this, sometimes there's that idea that the constant chaos of crowds and loud can maybe sometimes be better, but when they get them all together and they're leading the yell, there's so many times over the not just years, the decades, where I've seen the quarterback back up and do this because of the overwhelming sound of 105,000 people. And you probably saw this, but they haven't used Kyle Field. Kyle Field is a palace. I mean, they spent $500 million on a rebuild about 10 years ago. Well, they finally, with the idea of paying off Jimbo and so forth and making some money, they started using it for other things. They had a big soccer match with Mexico and Brazil over the summer, and the biggest was George Strait concert, which George Strait, is not far, is, from a few hours from here, 110,000 fans. It set those American concert record for tickets sold at a concert with like 110 or whatever. And it was funny. The only reason I got to go is the A&M baseball game. I was home. My wife was having some back issues, so I didn't go to the Omaha for the College World Series, but I was going to keep an eye on it remotely. The A&M baseball game in Omaha got delayed for weather. And I get on and I find some cheap tickets. So me and my kids went to the George Strait concert. What a great memory that was. I think it's smart. This is a really long way of saying I think it's really smart that they're now using Kyle Field for things other than just Aggie football to kind of help raise some money. Because as we know, that's why I think A&M Texas is going to be an annual game, even though that hasn't been official, because you can't pass up that much money.
No,
you can't have that game every 4 years in one of the cities. That would be ridiculous because the natural rival, if they do the 8 games, would be Texas and Oklahoma, A&M, LSU. A&M, LSU certainly has been colorful, but it's still not A&M, Texas. You've got to play that game every year. And I think the SEC realizes that, and that's inevitable starting in 2026, once they get past this current format with the schedules.
Yeah, I think so too. Hey, always a great pleasure to have you on, Brent. Thanks a lot for joining us. We'll be back with more of another Duly Noted podcast after we take this break.
Meldon Law has been serving personal injury victims since 1971. In those days, Jeffrey Meldon's presence as an attorney in the music scene dubbed him with the nickname the hippie attorney. And although times have changed, two things haven't: our commitment to bettering our community by helping the injured,
Albert, are you ready to go to the game?
and our love for the Florida Gators.
If you bleed orange and blue, Meldon Law is the firm for you.
Adams Rib Company has been a staple of Gainesville for more than a decade and a staple of the Dooley house ever since Kelsey's teeth came in. The first time I walked into Adams, I told my daughter that the green beans are always a test of a great barbecue restaurant, and they were perfect. You know about the ribs that melt in your mouth, and my favorite, the turkey plate. But be sure to go in on Fridays for Nana's Fish Nuggets. They will melt in your mouth. Adams Rib Co., a Gainesville great. Another Duly Noted podcast comes to you from the Coaches Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Celebration Point. You can watch and listen to us on Facebook and YouTube for every podcast that we do on Mondays and Fridays at 2 o'clock. Listen to the podcast whenever on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, any of the other 39 platforms where you can find this podcast or your favorite podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments section below or call me if you want to do some advertising at 352-317-3444. Okay, welcome back to another Duly Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Gator Studios here at the Ponderosa. It is time for all of our fun stuff that we love to do on every Monday and every Thursday here on the show, and we'll start off with our Hesser and Kipke 3 things. Okay, Hesser and Kipke is a Gainesville firm here for your needs in family law or workers' compensation. Call or text Ken and Jennifer 24/7 at 352-339-9920. Hesser and Kipke, nearly 50 years of combined legal experience and about to celebrate their 5th anniversary in January. Well, good for them. We appreciate Hesser and Kipke very much. Of course, let's get to our 3 things. Number 1, Chicago White Sox have decided to lower ticket prices next year. Yeah, maybe when you win 30 games, you can go ahead and go back to your old ticket prices. But right now, it's pretty bleak. Now, I know that they're kind of trying to do what the Braves did, which is gut your whole team, build up your farm system. It may take a while. But man, it's bad. Fired your manager and everything. And you're now next year going to reduce ticket prices. How about if you pay people to come to the games? Maybe you can get some people in there that way. I've been to Comiskey Park once. It was a dump then. I don't know what it's like now. They may have made it nicer. I don't know. I've been there a long time ago. All right, let's get to number 2 on our Hesser and Kipke 3 things, and that is Falcons making some noise, trading for Matthew Judon, who's a 4-time Pro Bowler linebacker, just the kind of guy that they need out there. I mean, the Falcons they've been pretty good on defense, but they just have had trouble getting the offense going. I tell you, they're a team that a lot of people are getting fired up about. Getting Kirk Cousins, drafting Michael Penix, which people were ripping that night, but now they've seen him play one game and they go, "Oh, he's the greatest thing ever." It's a great pick. Again, there's a lot of overreaction on the first preseason games of the year, but that is a big pickup for the Falcons. I'm kind of I've said this before. I don't have an NFL team. I don't root for one team. I do kind of like the Chiefs. They're kind of my team. But even then, when they play that tomahawk thing, I can't. I have to turn the sound down. Okay. But I've always kind of liked the Falcons. So I'm hoping they're going to be good. I'm hoping they're going to be relevant. I'm hoping they're going to be worth watching. And since I'm not playing fantasy football this year, I'll watch the games and just enjoy the game. Not the other things. All right. let's get to number 3 on our Hesser and Kipke 3 things, and that is baseball. I didn't realize this was going on, but they've been having some quiet discussions. It was a story, I think, on ESPN today about changing the rules in baseball and having a 6-inning minimum that your starting pitcher has to go, just so that they can change the dynamic of the game, where you're not bringing in guys and only pitching 1 inning and they can throw as hard as they want. I guess I don't really understand the mentality of it. First of all, how are you going to tell a guy, oh, he's got some arm discomfort, I'm taking him out. He's got a tight bicep, we're taking him out of the game in the 2nd inning. No, you can't take him out. He's got to pitch. He'll have to pitch left-handed. That seems like an unenforceable rule to me. It'd be great, yeah. I mean, but I know that if I'm in the 2nd inning and my guy's got nothing, he's throwing up pus. I want him out of there. I mean, there have been Florida games when I've gone, Sully, how can you stay in with this guy in the 2nd inning? But I mean, it's just it doesn't seem like an enforceable rule. But they're at least they're trying to think of things they can do to make baseball more interesting. I think moats would be a good idea. Just put some moats out there, and guys could, like in the steeplechase, they could have to jump over water to catch the ball. It might make it more interesting. Anyway, that is our Hesser and Kipke 3 things for today. Let's move along to it's time for our Hugh Cain Mayhem moment. We always love this. The Gator Nation is in good hands with local Allstate agent Hugh Cain. Stop by Alachua Marketplace Plaza in Alachua and get a free quote today. Okay, well, it was last night in the game that was played in Chicago. I think it was in Chicago. Anyway, wherever it was, doesn't matter. But they decided, the White Sox, to walk Juan Soto to face Aaron Judge. Look, there's no good answer to that. But of course, what did Aaron Judge do? But hit his 300th career home. Fastest guy ever to 300.
Who's in the second base is Juan Soto.
And look, I get it. Soto is on fire too, and it was a 3-0 pitch, and the pitcher walked off the field, I think, after he hit it. Now, it wasn't an important homer, I will say this. They were already up 6-2, but still, I mean, you got a new manager in there, I guess. I don't even know who their manager is after they fired their old one. But anyway, that was our Hugh Cain Mayhem moment. And we appreciate Hugh Cain Allstate, for being a sponsor of our podcast. Thanks so much. All right, let's move along to This, That, and the Other, brought to you by Ironwood Golf Course, by Ballyhoo. We love Ballyhoo Restaurant. And, of course, by Darshackow Insurance. Appreciate Darshackow. And for all of our great sponsors. If you recall Monday's show, if you listen to it, I made a big deal about Harbaugh being named the honorary captain for the Michigan opener against UNLV, which seemed like a real snub your nose, do this at the NCAA kind of thing. And I just thought it was just so, I don't know what the right word I'm looking for, pompous or entitled. I don't know what the right word is there, but it just aggravated me. It was almost like, hey, and you know what? We're going to keep cheating, and we're going to try to win another national title. How about that? That's what it appeared like to me. So that was that I let him have it, and I talked about it, and I talked about it on radio as well. And then, of course, the other is he called the head coach at who's got his own problems there, Sharon Moore, and said, I'm not coming. And I wondered, so I win. That's my point. I win. I said this was ridiculous. He's not doing it now. So he must have read or heard or something. I don't know. No, of course I know better than that. But I can tell you who I'm not rooting for in the NFL, and that's the Chargers. I don't like the guy, but I won. So we're 1-1 right now because he beat me when he yelled at me at the press conference for the Outback Bowl, or no, the Citrus Bowl. Yeah. That's a long story. I'll tell you some other time. All right. So I win, but we're 1-1 at myself and Harbaugh. That's this, that, and the other. Brought to you by Ironwood, by Darshakow Insurance, and by Ballyhoo Grill. Let's move along to our Swamp games of the weekend. And yeah, you got a full schedule this weekend, guys. First of all, I did want to mention too, Friday, soccer is playing at home. Home opener for the season, playing against Western Carolina. 58 days after Florida's last event, which was baseball. Now, I appreciate somebody adding that all up for me, so I didn't have to look it up. Somebody on Florida's site did that, FloridaGators.com. So they play at 7:00 at the Disney Stadium, and get over there. Give them your support. I mean, I think they're going to be better this year. They need to get better. We know that. But I mean, Samantha Bohan was put in a really tough situation there. I feel bad for her, but she's going to get it done. I'm convinced of that. 7:00 anyway. That is, and then afterwards, go to the Swamp, have a cocktail, have a beer, have a appetizer, whatever. Anyway, Saturday, you also have this. A ton of games. There is a quadruple header. Not a quadruple bogey, but a quadruple header on the NFL Network on Saturday. Cincinnati at Chicago at 1. Detroit at Kansas City at 4. Buffalo at Pittsburgh at 7. And Dallas at Vegas at 10. Now, I can't imagine that. Look, if that was the schedule for a college weekend, the games that counted, I'd watch them all. But exhibition, I'll just occasionally flip it around, keep it on the second TV. Although I think the NFL Network only comes in on my big TV, so I may have to watch it on that one. But anyway, so that's that day, and then Sunday, the NFL returns to Fox. New Orleans at San Francisco. That is a Fox game at 8:00. And there are other games. I mean, I know that, for example, we'll get to this in a minute, but Tampa Bay Jacksonville, I'm sure, is on the Jacksonville Network, which is, I think, 9. Yeah, I think it's 9. Whatever. It's on there somewhere, but I couldn't find it. But I'm sure it's on TV as well. So you got all that going on this weekend. Plenty of stuff to watch. You could just sit yourself right down at the Swamp and enjoy it, and have a couple of beers and watch football all day. That's the way we're going to be in coming Saturdays. We're at the point. What is the date today? I've got my little calendar there. 15th. Today's the 15th, so we're 9 days away from the start of the season. You can taste it. I know that the first games aren't going to be much, but that Thursday is going to be really interesting, and certainly Saturday is going to be very interesting. But we'll talk about that more later. Let's get to our Leonardo's and Millhopper quick picks, which I did want to use this game, the Tampa Bay Jacksonville game. That is your quick pick, and if you're Jacksonville, if you're taking the Jaguars, you're given 3.5 points. So Tampa Bay is a 3.5 point underdog, and it'll be interesting to see how far they go with Mayfield and how far the Jags go with Lawrence. So you would think they'd play in this game, but now, like Rodgers isn't playing in all this preseason. I don't even know why. I mean, I get why they have preseason games, but really, your preseason is in camp. Your preseason is in dual practices. That's where your preseason is. It's not in these exhibition games. Anyway, Tampa Bay getting 3.5 points at Jacksonville. That is your Leonardo's at Millhopper quick picks. And we appreciate Kyle and the folks over at Leonardo's for helping us out with that. Let's get to our Adams Rib Co. Gator of the week. And I had Adams on Tuesday night. That they catered the Titletown Gators thing, and it was great. Always great. I actually I went back. I didn't really eat a ton because I always get a little nervous before I speak, so I don't eat a ton. But I went back and got a second helping of their potato salad. I'm a sucker for potato salad, and they have the best potato salad there is. And I sit down. The lady said, "Is that banana pudding?" I go, "No, this does look stupid. I'm sitting here eating a plate with just potato salad on it, but it's potato salad. I'm a sucker for potato salad. It was good. It was great as always. All right, let's get to our Adams Rib Co. Gator of the week, and that is going to be Jeremy Crawshaw. Now, what did he do? Nothing. Well, he's out there punting. He's practicing and everything, but he was named to the Sporting News preseason All-American team. And you know me, I don't care about watch lists and preseason teams, but it's good to see a Gator get some recognition. I mean, he's had a great season, usually one shank putt a game, but not always, not every game. But he's been really good for Florida since they got him, 2 years ago. And it's good to see him get that kind of recognition. And, Florida's not on any of these other lists I've just been talking about, but he's on this one. So he is our Gator of the week. And I'm sure we could have made it any of those baseball players, but I wanted to give Jeremy Crawshaw, who I used to always screw up his name when I'd write it. I didn't realize what it was. I think I just heard people saying his name and I thought I had it spelled right. But anyway, spelling, not my... I need spell check. Let's just put it that way. All right. That's going to do it for another edition of another Duly Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Gator Studios. Thanks for joining us. Thanks to Brent for joining us. We appreciate him. Don't forget Coach Spurrier Monday and then Wayne Peace the following Thursday. Can't wait for that. And that's going to do it. I am Pat Dooley. I am deep. I am way back. Thanks, Zach. I am out of here.